In today's video, we're going to be answering a comment that came up from one of my latest videos from someone really suffering with swaying in their golf swing. They have no idea why this is the case, but it's causing too many inconsistent golf shots, especially causing the strike to be way off. Some duff shots, some thin shots, you name it. So if you find yourself really suffering with getting this swaying motion in your golf swing at the moment, you should continue watching this video because we're going to be diving into a really simple step-by-step drill you can do right now that's going to allow you to stop swaying for good and improve that ball striking, especially with the irons. So for those of you who are new to the channel, my name is Harry, PGA Golf Professional, transforming golfers worldwide down here at the Golf Projects. And make sure you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and drop a comment down below of a tips or drills video you would like me to cover in a future video. So before we dive into the first step of this drill, it's really important that I explain now why this off-center strike happens with this swaying motion here and why it's so important we correct this. Well, if I was to swing back and forth now, what are we creating? We are creating a swing circle. The club swings around this massive circle here, okay? So when we get this big circle, this swing arc is what we like to call it, happening and taking place in the golf swing. If we shift ourselves either way like this here and sway too much in the golf swing, it is pushing the circle either side of its center. It's moving the circle further away from the golf ball, whether we go too far backwards or too far ahead of the golf ball. And the problem with this is when we go too far backwards and we stay here, it's very difficult for me to make contact with the golf ball. So more likely to hit those duff shots or ever so slightly hit up on the golf ball. Not too bad for a driver, but with an iron, we want to be getting rid of this. Or in reaction, sometimes I see players go up to the top, get this swaying motion here, and then in reaction to this, they've got to go really far forward. And as they come far forward, you can see that's very difficult to time. So we're more likely to end up topping the golf ball or hitting way too steep onto the golf ball. So if we can get this swing circle moving directly up and down, as opposed to shifting either side during the swing, our swing will be adding more rotation as opposed to getting this lateral shift taking place and therefore improving the strike. So starting off with step one for this drill, all you're going to do to start off with is take the club away for now. You're going to take something as simple as an alignment stick like this here, and I'm just going to place it directly behind the golf ball on this angle here, right in the middle of my stance. So when I set up here now, I'm going to be making sure that my sternum, the center of my chest, is directly over that alignment stick. We're not going too far over like this here or standing too vertical to the ground. We're just ensuring that we're on this 45-degree angle here to make a golf swing. We're placing our hands across the shoulders like this here. And the key to this, a lot of golfers make the mistake, and why I see so many get this lateral motion taking place is because they're thinking of transferring their weight back and forth in their golf swing. And they are absolutely right. You should be thinking about this if you're doing this action. However, it's misinterpreted far too much. It's really important that we understand the term weight transfer. So transferring our weight, a lot of golfers, when they get this sway, they'll just shift over like this here. And you can see my center, my swing center, which is the center of my chest being the sternum, is moving too far away from that alignment stick. In order for us to transfer this weight, rather than just putting the pressure on this side here, because if I was to take a club and do this, well, the only way I can swing is going out, getting stuck, and then having to swing too flat. So in terms of the swing itself, it ruins it. And also we swing too far away, so affecting this swing circle, moving this swing circle like we mentioned before, too far behind the golf ball. So taking the hands like so, we're going to be starting off with ensuring that we're setting up and starting off that golf swing in the correct motion. How do we apply this rotation that's going to allow our sternum here to stay over this alignment stick? Well, I like to think of two things, two simple things to make this very, very easy to start. The first one is going to be as my trail shoulder lifts up, I'm going to ensure that my trail hip rotates away from the golf ball. So when we get this action here of these two moving upwards and away from the golf ball, you can see here I'm able to keep my sternum well over that alignment stick very easily. I'm not rotating and shifting behind, and I'm not doing the opposite either, going too far onto this lead side here. I'm just keeping an eye on that alignment stick, hands across the shoulders, allowing this right hip, the trail hip of mine, to move away, rotate away from that golf ball as my right shoulder, trail shoulder, lifts upwards. So as I'm doing this here, I'm really keeping an eye on that alignment stick on the ground to ensure that my swing center is staying over that alignment stick as opposed to going this way like so. We don't want it to move this way. This is what I see a lot of golfers do as well. Just make sure you don't do this, is that you'll end up almost trying to add pressure on this trail side, then eventually get this sternum moving away from the stick and getting very lateral with the shoulders in this position here. When this happens, the club goes all over the place and it causes our swing to falter basically. We want to be making sure at all times, at all costs, we are turning and keep doing our best to keep that sternum over the alignment stick. And you'll also find that as you start to get used to this, you'll be able to start to feel where that weight is transferring in your swing. From 50-50 at the start of the swing to then moving towards the trail side of the body, this leg here, this foot, as we rotate and work all the way to the top of the swing. So for the second part of this drill, we're working up to the top of the swing. And the first initial move, how we transfer this weight all the way onto the lead side like this here to begin that golf swing. What's the first initial move? How do we transfer that move and get that transition happening in the golf swing? And it all starts from this hip here. So we've worked our way up to the top, getting this trail hip working away, right shoulder working upwards. And now we want this lead hip here to fire not towards the target, because look what happens when we shift it towards the target like this here. It goes towards the net. And the problem with this is we end up getting this swaying motion again. We end up leaning too far back, affecting that swing circle and probably hitting the ground too far before the golf ball, or then we get those massive hooks taking place. So rather than shifting this hip forwards, forget the term hip to target, we want to get this hip going away from the golf ball. And you can see when I get this hip working away from the golf ball from the top of the swing here, I'm able to keep my sternum over that alignment stick for much longer in the downswing. So we're turning up to the top and then we're firing that left hip, the lead hip, away from the golf ball. And look how much easier that is for me to stay over that alignment stick on the ground. Yes, eventually, because we get that trail heel lifting upwards at the end of the swing, we want to allow the sternum to move ahead of the alignment stick like this here. But it's important that we make a few swings doing this downswing move in stages nice and slow, ensuring that we're almost delaying this movement from taking place. If we did it from this point here, you can see there, we end up leaning back too much again, getting the club stuck. Anything can happen from that move. So take a couple of practice swings, combining these two motions before we take a golf club. So hands back on the shoulders like this, right hip working away from the golf ball as the right shoulder works upwards. And then we're getting this lead hip to begin that downswing phase, rotating and shifting away from the golf ball, so working almost behind you towards the wall behind you. And that's going to help you keep that sternum over the alignment stick for much longer. And as a bonus tip here, you want to allow this lead shoulder now to lift upwards. You can see how I'm able to open up my hips like this here, but also keep my shoulders nice and square. So what an impact position that's going to be. Much better strikes for sure. So speaking of which, let's move this into using the golf club for now. I'd highly recommend using a high lofted club to begin this. Maybe something like a pitching wedge 9-iron. I've got an 8-iron here just because I like to use that for all my drill swings. And I wouldn't go any higher than 7-iron. So the same thing applies with this here. Obviously now we've got the club in our hands, we're thinking about the swing, we're trying to get into positions. No. What I want you to focus on, if you're someone that's really suffering with this swaying motion at the moment, it's really important that you ensure you get in the lower body and upper body, the body in the correct sequence, working in the correct manner before you even tinker with positions in your golf swing. Get the body working correctly, and then we can look at positions later on. To begin with then, we're gripping the club as normal, setting up, imagining we're going to get this trail hip working away from the golf ball as we get this right shoulder working upwards. And you can see there, if I just relax my arms, relax my shoulders and allow the club to almost set in position, and I get this trail hip working away, get this right shoulder working upwards, I can just get myself into a relatively good backswing position without really having to overthink it. I'm just ensuring from this point here that I'm allowing this weight to be transferred onto this trail side of the body. But the key again, we're making sure we're keeping the sternum, the swing center, over that alignment stick. As soon as we shift this way, it is game over, because we're always going to either stay on this side or fight back and try and get back ahead, and that's very difficult to time. So working up to the top of the swing, opening up that hip, working away from the golf ball as this trail shoulder works upwards like so. To begin that downswing now, obviously we're checking where the alignment stick is, that's good. And then from the downswing now, we're ensuring this lead hip now is working away from the golf ball. If we get that lead hip working towards the target, you can see here, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to hit the ground first or end up having to flick it last minute to get it back on target. Up to the top, get this lead hip working away from the golf ball like this here. And as a bonus tip for this, just something else to remember, is getting that lead shoulder working upwards at the end here. And you can see there now my hands are nicely ahead of the club face there. We're getting that reduction in loft at impacts, got good compression from this better angle of attack, keeping that swing circle on its natural form as opposed to shifting too far back or too far forwards, which is going to make things so much easier to make contact with that golf ball. It's a lot harder to make contact with any ball in any sport if we're moving around all the time. What do? We focus on a specific point and we go and hit it from that specific point. I can't get my words out now. Right, here we go. So once you've gone and worked on this a couple of times, ensuring you're getting that rotation in the golf swing as opposed to getting this lateral shift, the swaying motion, I would highly recommend having a look at this video here, which is going to help you get that first point in the golf swing, the first position in the golf swing correct every single time. And I'll also include a nice simple downswing move as well, how we get this transition from backswing to downswing. So have a look at that, hit the subscribe button, comment down below to let me know how you get on from watching this video, and we'll see you next time.